Now, I don't know if I would call this movie the best video game movie ever made, because in my mind, the best video game movie is still Tomb Raider, but Rampage is definitely one of the most video game movies ever made. Now, this is not an accurate adaptation of the video game per se, because, you know, the filmmakers, they took a lot of, you know, liberty in terms of, like, storyline, characters, and all that. So this movie is not accurate to the video game that is adapted, but it felt like a video game. Like, watching this movie, it felt like a video game. It's like you're watching a cutscene of some sort. It's so cheesy, it's so animated, and some of these characters, they just walk right out of an arcade games. Now let me start off this review with the things that I like about this movie, and there are plenty. I thought for the most part the visual effect was really good. The motion capture work on Jort, the big gorilla, it's pretty impressive. It's not Planet of the Apes good, but it's still pretty impressive. The Rock is very charismatic, very likable, and he basically, I mean, like, it's not a surprise, right? He played himself basically in this movie, but it worked. It worked for this scenario, and I have to give this man the credit he deserved, because remember when Marky Mark stand next to Optimus Prime fighting, you know, evil robots in Transformers? It looks very out of place. It looks unnecessary, and it looks weird, you know what I mean? But when The Rock is fighting giant crocodiles, giant wolf that flies, and he's teaming up with Jort, a big gorilla, a big albino gorilla, it's goofy, you know, it's funny, it look, you know, very silly, but in a weird way, it's kind of work, and it doesn't look out of place. That's what I'm trying to say. It looked right. It felt right. But hands down, my favorite character of this movie has to be Harvey Russell, played brilliantly by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He is just so goddamn animated, from his body language, from the way he talks, and, you know, his action and his character. It's just so larger than life, so, you know, so silly and so entertaining to watch. Like, this is one of those characters, like, right? This is one of those characters that every time that he talks, everything that comes out of this guy's mouth is either silly, like stupid silly, or just cinema gold. And, you know, personally, I would lean more toward the cinema gold side, because it was so funny. Like, it's everything that he said. Like, from like the simplest thing, like just the easy, like, line, like, oh, we'll be alright. That's how I would say it. But this guy, he was just so, like, in his own head. He was just in his own world. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, we'll be alright. Like, he wasn't talk like that. It's amazing. Like, every time, you know, you watch a movie with The Rock in it, you know, 9 times out of 10, he's gonna steal the shows. But not in this movie, which is a rare case where someone could out-cool The Rock. And that's pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing when you think about it. And before I watched the movie, I saw a couple of reviews from, like, Jeremy Jahns and, you know, Chris Stuckman, and they said that the action doesn't really take place until the very end of the movie. Everything leading up to that was very boring. They're not wrong, but for me, you know, there's enough actions in this movie, right? You know, the monster battles did not happen to the end, sure. But, you know, human versus monster, like, you know, like the military, because, you know, this is a kaiju movie, of course the military has to show up to get killed. So they did show up to catch the wolf, to catch Jort, and some of them got fucked up pretty good. So for me, the lack of action was not a problem at all. You know, there's enough action, you know, like, sprinkled throughout the movie, and then at the end they really deliver in, like, a big giant monster battle, which was really cool to watch. But everything else in between was very boring, very unnecessary, and, you know, I don't want to say that this movie took itself seriously, because they didn't. You know, they were aware of the premise, the silly premise, and, you know, they tried their best to have fun with that premise. But the script of this movie is unnecessarily complicated. Like, the movie opened up and they're in like space station, and I was like, what? Why? Like, why are we in space? This is a Rampage movie. It could have been so simple. Malin Ackerman, who some of you might remember from Watchmen, she played Spectre. She did not deliver a bad performance. It's just that the writing of her character is very disappointing. She played this like evil like CEO of this corporation who's like experiment on animals and stuff, and I'm like, you don't need that. You don't need that, you know, evil corporation subplot. It could have been like, again, it could have been simple. It could have been like, oh, it's a science project gone wrong, and now these animal or these human turn into giant monster, giant animal. It could have been that, you know, like, but they trying to force this like evil corporation, evil companies into the movie, and it's like, the movie would have been so much better, so much more fun had you taken that whole subplot out. Like, it doesn't really add anything to the story. Again, I don't think these actors, they are bad actors by any means. It's just that the writing, the material for them, just not strong enough. And speaking of writing, the dialogue in this movie, they're not the best, to say the least. They are so generic and so, like, it felt like a first or second draft. Like, it felt like the dialogue of this movie could have used a little bit more, like, rewrite. And a couple of these actors, they are really good at delivering bad, you know, dialogue and make it sound cool, like, you know, The Rock and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. They're pretty good at that. But then you also have Naomi Harris, who is, you know, one of the best actors working, you know, today, and I love her to death. But her performance in this movie, which is horrible. It is very, very bad. And it's not her fault, to be honest. She is not, you know, this is not the role for her. I believe she was miscast. Like, this is, Naomi Harris, she's not good at, you know, delivering cheesy line. She's very good with, like, dramatic and, you know, like, mysterious, like James Bond, or like, if you guys have seen Moonlight, she was excellent in Moonlight. But in this movie, I would say 80% of her dialogue is just like, you know, explaining to The Rock like what is going on with all these animals. That's pretty much it. Like, she's just there to be saved by The Rock, to you know, to explain scientific things that, you know, people or, you know, the audience might not know what the hell that was, and she would be like, oh, this is blah 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 blah, you know, like just spill out all those science things. It is very disappointing because Naomi Harris, she's such a great actress, but this is not the right role for her. That's what I'm trying to say. And the writing, you know, these writers, they're not doing these actors any favor. The writing is horrible. I feel like with all the money that they've been making, we will get a sequel. And to be honest, I do not oppose to the idea of making a sequel to Rampage, but this is not a good start. This first Rampage movie is not a good start. And if we do, you know, end up getting a sequel, I do hope that the writers and, you know, the creators, the producer, they, you know, put a little bit more effort in terms of like writing the materials and, you know, giving these actors something to work with, and really think about what the audience show up to see. They didn't buy the ticket to see, you know, evil corporation. They didn't buy the ticket to see, you know, science, like complicated scientific things explained to them. They're there to see The Rock kicking ass. They're there to see monsters kicking each other ass. But I'll be lying to say that I didn't have some type of fun during this movie, especially at, you know, like the very end of the movie. I want to say like the last 30 minutes. That's the reason that I show up to see Rampage. And on that front, they really delivered. Like, that was really fun. That end fight scene was really, really fun. In the end, I'm gonna give Rampage a 5 out of 10. There are things that need some work, but there are definitely things to like about this movie. And in the end, they kind of, you know, balance each other out. That's why I give it a 5 out of 10. It's sort of like somewhere in the middle. So, Rampage, have you seen the movie? I know this review is like a week late, so I'm assuming that you guys have seen the movie. And if you have, let me know in the comment section how you feel about it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And if you enjoyed my review, hit the like button, subscribe to me if you want to see more reviews like this. And with that being said, I'll see you soon.